My neighbor knocked on my door at midnight. Hours later, her husband showed up. The knock came so suddenly that I thought I had imagined it. It was 12:30 inches the morning in a quiet neighborhood outside Asheville, North Carolina, where the loudest sound after dark was usually the wind brushing through the oak trees. But the knocking came again. Soft, hurried, almost desperate. When I opened the door, I found my neighbor, Rachel, standing on my porch with tears running down her face, clutching nothing but a small canvas bag. She looked as though she'd been carrying the weight of the world for years and had finally reached the point where she couldn't take another step alone. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change lives, that hope is never wasted, and that forgiveness and compassion still matter in this world. Please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt stories that remind us all there is still goodness in people. I had lived next door to Rachel and her husband, Nathan, for nearly 4 years. We waved while mowing our lawns, exchanged Christmas cookies every December, and occasionally borrowed tools from one another. They always seemed like the kind of couple everyone admired, quiet, respectful, and dependable. Yet that night, every smile I'd ever seen from Rachel seemed to have disappeared. She wasn't asking for money or favors. She simply admitted she didn't know where else to go for a few hours. Something had happened that evening, something she wasn't ready to explain, and all she wanted was somewhere peaceful to sit until sunrise. There was a trembling in her voice that told me she had spent months pretending everything was fine. I made coffee, even though neither of us intended to sleep again. We sat in the living room, while rain began tapping gently against the windows. Little by little, pieces of her story emerged. Nathan hadn't become cruel or dangerous. Instead, he had become someone almost impossible to reach. After losing his job nearly a year earlier, he buried himself in silence. Pride kept him from accepting help. Bills piled up, conversations disappeared, and every attempt Rachel made to encourage him seemed to push him further away. Their house had become painfully quiet, filled with worry instead of laughter. Listening to her reminded me of my own marriage years before. My wife, Rebecca, had passed away after a long illness, and during those difficult months, I had also convinced myself that carrying every burden alone was somehow noble. It nearly destroyed us, both. Sometimes, people don't need someone to solve their problems. They simply need someone willing to listen without judgment. Hours passed more quickly than either of us noticed. Just before dawn, headlights swept across my driveway. Rachel froze. A pickup truck stopped outside my house, and Nathan slowly climbed out. He looked exhausted. His beard had grown uneven, his shoulders sagged beneath an old jacket, and his eyes carried the unmistakable look of someone who hadn't forgiven himself in a very long time. I expected anger. Instead, I saw heartbreak. Nathan stood on my porch for nearly a minute before knocking. When I answered, he didn't ask where Rachel was. He already knew. He simply admitted that he'd driven around for hours trying to find the courage to come. Earlier that evening, he had finally opened a drawer filled with unpaid bills and realized he had allowed fear to become stronger than love. He confessed that he wasn't looking for excuses anymore. He only wanted one chance to tell his wife the truth, that he had been ashamed, overwhelmed, and terrified of failing the person who had always believed in him. Rachel quietly stepped into the hallway. Neither of them rushed forward. They simply looked at one another, and in that long silence I realized some conversations are too important for words to interrupt. I quietly walked into the kitchen, giving them privacy. From where I stood, I couldn't hear everything they said, but I could hear something far more meaningful. I heard crying slowly turn into calm voices. I heard apologies met with honesty instead of blame. Most importantly, I heard two people deciding that their marriage was worth fighting for together, instead of separately. Over the following months, our neighborhood watched small miracles unfold. Nathan accepted temporary construction work while attending evening certification classes. Rachel started a small home bakery that quickly became popular around town. They didn't become wealthy overnight, but laughter gradually returned to their porch. Weekend barbecues replaced silent evenings, and neighbors who barely knew one another began gathering more often, proving that community can sometimes heal wounds pride cannot. One crisp autumn afternoon, Nathan handed me a handwritten note. Inside was a single sentence: "Thank you for opening your door before you knew our story." I folded that note into my wallet, where it still remains today. It reminds me that the greatest act of kindness isn't always giving someone answers. Sometimes, it's simply giving them a safe place until they find their own. Before we reach the end, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment and tell us about a moment when someone's kindness or your own made a lasting difference in someone's life. Your story may become the encouragement another person desperately needs today. As Rachel and Nathan celebrated their anniversary the following spring, watching them laugh together on their front porch reminded me that hope rarely arrives with fireworks. More often, it arrives with a quiet knock in the middle of the night and a neighbor willing to answer. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking the video, sharing it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribing for more heartfelt stories. Because sometimes, the smallest act of compassion becomes the beginning of someone else's greatest second chance.